Hi, my name is Kimberly and welcome back to my channel. Today's legal topic is domestic violence. I'm an attorney that teaches a parent education class here in Tennessee, and I get a lot of clients, unfortunately, that come in that have experienced domestic violence during their relationship. There's been a couple of changes to the statute in Tennessee, so we're going to go over that, but be sure you stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to deal with testifying in an order of protection or domestic violence case.
We are going to be talking about a new statute today, so if you would like to look that up, I've gone ahead and put it up here on the screen for you. Tennessee Code Annotated 39-13-113. You can Google that if you would like to pull up an actual copy of the statute, and I'm going to be putting some excerpts up for you while we're talking today. If you are watching this because you are a victim of domestic violence, I would encourage you to please call, please get help. Call 911, go to your local police station, tell a friend, but get some help. I also wanted to take a minute to make a quick note that we are seeing an increase in men coming forward as victims of domestic violence. So I think hopefully that taboo in society is sort of lifting, because I've had several male clients over the last, 18 months to 2 years come in, and they were actually the victims of domestic violence. So I just wanted to note that domestic violence is not just limited to our female clients, and we need to expand our knowledge base about that, as well as making sure that the judge is informed that men can definitely be victims of domestic violence. It's not uncommon for me to go down to court when I'm representing a man and have the judge start off with someone on the other side and say, "Hey, what claim are you bringing today?" And that's when I have to pipe up and say, "Excuse me, Your Honor, but actually the victim in this case is my male client." I have pulled another excerpt for you from Tennessee Code Annotated 39-13-113. So a violation of this section is a Class A misdemeanor, which is punishable by a fine and also incarceration. So let's take a look at all the different factors that are in this new statute. Let's talk about this Class A misdemeanor. Obviously, that applies to criminal cases, and the court wants us to know that there is no acceptable level of domestic violence and no reason for domestic violence. The Class A misdemeanor can apply for temporary or permanent cases. Let's start with the monetary penalties. The new statute tells us that the monetary penalties range anywhere from $100 all the way up to $2,500, and that will be in the discretion of the court. I wanted to give you an example of a case that I had recently where the husband had been cooking dinner for himself and his wife, and they got in a domestic violence argument, an altercation. And, well, I don't know if I would really call it an altercation, but he got mad and he took some of the lukewarm spaghetti sauce that was on the stove and he flicked it on his wife, and he hit her with that, or the sauce landed on the base of her neck. So she got really mad and she called the police, and they showed up at the house, and she filed a domestic violence report against him, and we showed up in court that day to defend him and to talk about whether or not that would rise to the level of domestic violence. And so that could be a case where, in judicial discretion, they may err on the lower side of that penalty. Another case I had earlier this year, before this law changed, was a case where wife tried to leave her husband and he beat her almost to death. He put her in the hospital. He broke several of her ribs. He smashed some bones in her cheeks, and she was in the hospital for about 3 days. So in that case, obviously, in addition to a lot of other criminal charges, she filed a order of protection against him. And in this case, we would go back, and of course, we're going to push the judge to give the maximum sentence in that case, and also to instill the highest level of penalty, which would be the $2,500. Let's hop back over to the statute and look at the portion of the statute that talks about incarceration. So we know that it says any sentence of incarceration imposed shall be served consecutively to the sentence for any other offense that's based in whole or in part upon the same factual allegations. So we know that these are consecutive sentences. At least that's kind of the default. However, it does give us a caution that the sentencing judge can specifically order the sentences for the offenses rising out of the same facts or circumstances to be served concurrently, which means at the same time. Now that you are familiar with the new law, I hope that you will go ahead and file an order of protection if you are a victim of domestic violence. So as promised, once you file that order of protection, you are going to have to go down and testify in court. So I'm going to give you 6 tips to help you testify. Tip number 1, go visit the courthouse before you have to testify. That will let you know where the restroom is, where your courtroom is, so you won't have to be kind of walking around, meandering around, searching for where you're supposed to be. You can also scout out a good place to park in an area where there are lots of people. Tip number 2, do not bring your children. If at all possible, find someone to babysit them, drop them off at daycare. Do not pull them out of school that day. Try to keep your interaction with the person who is accused of hurting you to a minimum, and also keep that away from your children. Tip number 3, bring a friend or a support person with you. Not everyone can afford an attorney, so you may be there representing yourself. And you definitely want to have someone who you can look over at when you get nervous, or someone to keep you calm and help you deal with your fear and your emotions. Tip number 4, talk to someone who has been there before. In other words, if you have joined some sort of self-help group or some sort of online chat room or anything like that, it would really help you to talk to someone who has lived through an order of protection hearing, who has testified, and who's made it through this process. So if you get an opportunity to talk to someone who has been through this before, that would be tip number 4. The 5th and final tip is find a fantastic domestic violence attorney. You need someone who knows the right questions to ask, knows what evidence to preserve, knows your judge, and can tell you how the process works.
Thank you for watching our tips about testifying in domestic violence cases today. If you liked this video and you want to be notified when we do more legal videos, please be sure to click subscribe down below and give us a thumbs up.